All right, welcome back to the weekly fantasy basketball show over at Rotoworld. I am your host, as always, Noah Rubin, and joined once again for the final time this season by Kingy at AdamKing91 on Twitter. This will be the final Q&A that we're doing for this season because fantasy playoffs are either wrapping up this week for some people or getting close to that point. So this will be the last one of the season, but you don't have to stop listening to us talk about fantasy basketball. We still do have Kingy's show over with Fantasy Basketball International called the Balls Deep Podcast. So if you want to check that out, you can continue to hear us ramble. So it'll be a lot of fun. But as we have some of these questions rolling in, I just wanted to ask Kingy, were the dunks that we saw last night between Anthony Edwards on John Collins, Jalen Johnson on Austin Reeves, and then Jalen Johnson again kind of doing the double clutch thing around LeBron, were those three dunks better than anything we saw in the dunk contest during All-Star Weekend?
Look, they always look better during the game because you're dunking on someone. It's in play. It's not scripted or anything like that. So I think it always looks better, especially with the fact that dunk comp has probably had some critics over the last few years. Players are sort of running out of dunks. We're not really seeing elite players in the dunk comp. I know Jaylen Brown was in it this year, but in-game dunks are always far better. I think the Edwards one was probably the pick of them. And he dislocated his finger doing it as well. So he's questionable tonight against Denver. So hopefully he plays. But no, they were pretty special. Always good to see those poster dunks. Wemby's going to be on plenty of those.
He will be, and obviously he'll also have plenty of really exciting blocks. Or maybe they won't even look all that exciting just because he's just standing there and blocking it. Like, he's not doing anything. I don't know. It doesn't look as spectacular when he's 7'5" doing it, but it'll still be pretty crazy. But mentioned Anthony Edwards is now questionable tonight. Like, there's a little bit of injury news that comes out because of this one specific dunk, and really even more so just throughout the game, because Anthony Edwards is now questionable tonight with a dislocated finger. John Collins got hit in the head on that and left that game early with a head contusion. They said it's not a concussion, but that could mean Walker Kessler returns to the starting lineup moving forward. Nickeil Alexander-Walker could start in place of Anthony Edwards if he doesn't play against Denver tonight. And then Naz Reid left that game early too after he had been starting at center. Both him and Rudy Gobert are questionable to play tonight against Denver. So could be a lot of good streaming options potentially, because if both Gobert and Naz Reid sit out, could we be looking at Luka Garza maybe sliding into the starting lineup? I don't know if that gets anybody else juiced, but it could be kind of fun to see a guy like Luka Garza make an impact in the fantasy playoffs. But just kind of interesting that we could see streaming options come about because of some spectacular dunks. Well, really just the one dunk had most of the fantasy impact there, but hopefully that'll be a good thing. Specifically, obviously hoping John Collins is okay, but if Walker Kessler can go back into the starting lineup, I think that'll be huge because it kind of forces Will Hardy's hand there, because he's been wanting to bench him all season for some reason. But one more thing I wanted to mention, I know we talked about this briefly before we get into some of these questions. LeBron James and JJ Redick started their podcast, and it has nothing to do with fantasy basketball, but it has a lot to do with just regular basketball. And I think it's a ton of fun. It was, I think, about 43 minutes for this first episode. My eyes were glued to the screen the entire time. Just a lot of detail put in, a lot of thought just from two just really good basketball minds. So if you're interested in actual basketball outside of just fantasy, outside of just the numbers, and you want to hear two guys that think at a high level talk about it, definitely recommend you checking that out. It's called Mind the Game. So I don't know, just a nice basketball plug there. So obviously they don't need it. They don't need me recommending their podcast to get people to listen to it. However, I'm going to, because it was good. And then, but
I'll just
we can go ahead and
I'll
get
just
into
say,
some of these.
I haven't watched it, so I'll probably watch it today or at least listen to it. But if you are looking for content that's, I guess, non-fantasy related, and I know I've mentioned this once or twice. I don't know if it was on this show, but DeMar DeRozan also has a new show out on his YouTube channel called Dinners with DeMar. So he's done 3 episodes so far with Draymond Green, Dwayne Wade, and Damian Lillard. And it's them sitting down talking about mental health, being a professional athlete. So it's not even, I guess, related as much to basketball, but more about the impacts of being an athlete and the toll it takes, that sort of thing. So I've just found them really, really interesting to watch. So yeah.
A lot of players have done a really good job with podcasts. But one more note on the LeBron JJ one, you mentioned listening to it. I would recommend watching it because they have like sometimes they'll be talking about specific plays or specific sets, and they have either film or like an X's and O's chart, just kind of showing what they're talking about. So I think it ends up being something that is a little better to watch as opposed to just listen to. But still could probably get a lot out of it by listening to it. But now that we've wasted enough time talking about other things, we can get into a few of the questions that we have here. Don't have a ton yet, so if you have any at all, please drop them in so we can have some more stuff to talk about. But this first one here from Rizzy McGuire. A playoff started, but I have a bye this week. In a vacuum, who should I add? Sam Merrill, Jontay Porter, or Duce McBride? A head-to-head league with no turnovers. Obviously, the appeal of Merrill is that Donovan Mitchell is out for the next week. But if you have a bye, it may not be quite as impactful to have him as a streaming option, depending on how much more time Donovan Mitchell misses. Duce McBride would be streaming in place of OG Anunoby, who Adrian Wojnarowski. That was the first time I've said his name, like his full name out, like in like a really, really long time. I don't remember ever saying Woj. Like that sounds so much better. I don't know why I spelled it out, but said that OG was going to miss more than just last night's game. So don't know exactly how long it's going to be, but at least one more game. And McBride played 47 minutes and scored 29 points. Didn't really do anything else, but Tom Thibodeau said, yeah, you're not sitting down. And then Josh Hart sat down even less because he played all 48 minutes. But which of these guys would you be looking to add here?
Yeah, I think as you said, Merrill and Duce are sort of reliant on what's happening around them. And if you were playing this week, I think we'd have a different discussion. But given that you actually don't need any of these guys until next week, I don't know. I mean, Mitchell could be back early next week, which would make Merrill useless. OG could be back, which means Duce won't be playing 47 minutes. So, yeah, I don't know. The OG one was interesting. They sort of said that this is the ongoing elbow thing. He's had the surgery. So it didn't sound good, but then they came out and said the MRI was clean. And so is this just a pain thing related to the surgery? So we haven't got a lot of clarity. So Porter is probably the safest because I think his role is pretty safe in Toronto. Just pulling up his box score. He's not going to score a lot for you, but he'll get just sort of production in all those other categories. And he's played, where are we? So he's played 22, 27, 21, 22 minutes. He's basically had at least 1 or 2 steals and blocks in each of those 4 games. So he's probably the safest, just I think long term. But if you could wait, I don't know. It's tough to know because I think the Cavs would like to get Donovan back in the lineup. Knicks would like to get OG because they're sort of battling for a higher seeding. So I think both teams have incentive to rush those guys back, but they also want them healthy for the playoffs. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. I'd say Porter is the safest. But if we're looking at what they did last night, that sort of thing, it's probably Duce McBride.
Yeah, I think they were talking about OG's elbow flaring up, and we just saw him miss a ton of games. So maybe I'm a little bit more interested in Duce at this point. It could have also been that it was a little bit matchup dependent. The fact they were playing Golden State, who has a smaller starting lineup, maybe they opted to use a smaller starting unit. And leave Precious Achiuwa on the bench a little bit more, have Duce McBride kind of follow Steph Curry around. So maybe that doesn't even stick through to their next game. I don't remember who they play, but if actually I'll try and pull it up as I'm saying this, but if it's a team that maybe has a little bit of a bigger lineup, like so they played Denver on Thursday, they may not want to have Duce McBride in there the whole game. So it could be a little bit different. But yeah, I think Jontay Porter is probably the safest as far as not being reliant on somebody else to be out to have like any sort of real value. So
yeah.
All right, who are you more interested in streaming tonight? Micic against play Orlando or Lively against San Antonio? Who are you more interested in?
Look, I think if you're looking just who could probably produce the most, who's going to play the most, it's Micic. I think we've seen he's going to play big minutes. But it depends what you need. Do you need assists and steals, or do you need blocks and rebounds?
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, because Lively's minutes haven't been consistent. Like he played 23 in the last game, but only played 14 the game before that. Has 2 blocks in 3 of their last 4 games. So, yeah, I think Micic is probably a little bit of a safer option, but it is dependent on categories, because it doesn't matter how many minutes Micic plays, he's probably going to have less blocks than Derek Lively. So, all that it just entirely category dependent.
Yeah.
Should I drop Miles Bridges to stream Keon Ellis? Same streaming versus keeping question for Lively. Would you drop after his last game of the week on Thursday or hold him? Okay, so obviously I think it's a little bit dependent on how many players you can keep. Like if it's only 2 keepers, then maybe the value there isn't as important. So might be a little bit of a factor there to consider. But I guess the thing of it is Keon Ellis, how many more games does Sacramento play this week? They still have 3 more games, and Charlotte has 2. So maybe after, let me see when their games are. Because I know Charlotte, we just talked about it, plays tonight, and then they play Saturday. So Miles Bridges only has 1 more game of value there. I don't know, like, I guess, how do you feel about Keon Ellis? That's probably my question.
Yeah, he's interesting. He played big minutes. Kevin Hurd has been trash and was injured last night anyway, or left with an injury. So they've said that Keon will start if Herder misses time. So he's played at least 28 minutes in 3 straight, or 27 minutes in 4 straight. If all you're looking for is defensive stuff, then I'd consider it, because he's not going to do much else. Don't believe the 5 blocks. He had 5 blocks last night.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen very often, but he could get you multiple steals on any given night. So, look, I don't mind Keon if he's going to start. There's a chance that they just end up playing him over Kevin Herder anyway, because Herder is not playing well and isn't that good. I don't mind Keon Ellis streaming this week. It's a tough one. I mean, if you've got the Hornets or the Mavericks, we know they've only got 2 weeks, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday about who on those teams is worth keeping in a 2-game week, and Bridges was sort of on the border there. Like I think it was Luka, Kyrie. That's probably it. Anyone else who plays for Charlotte or Dallas can be dropped this week, but they do play tonight, obviously. So would I drop Bridges for Ellis? Only if you need defensive stuff, because Bridges, even in 2 games, is probably going to score a lot more than Keon Ellis. Will get you more threes. For Lively, I don't know. Do you need blocks and rebounds? Same as that last question, because that's all he's going to give you. His minutes are up and down. He might get you 7 or 8 rebounds and 1 or 2 blocks. That's it.
And the thing with Lively is, this was mentioned in this question, is that they play a game tonight and they play again on Thursday. So then they don't play it all Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can probably drop him. I mean, you should drop him after that. No problem. No reason to hang on to him, obviously, especially if it's in the championship. Miles Bridges plays tonight and then again on Saturday. So it makes it a little bit more of a question of, do you want to wait until like just to have him for that game. He did add in another comment that it's unlimited keepers, so it's not like you're having to manage, okay, like I'm only keeping 3 guys, the rest don't matter as much. So that does also make it a little bit more difficult because, I mean, Keon Ellis may be able to give you some defensive stats this game, but how does that compare to what Miles Bridges and Derek Lively are going to be able to do over the next few years? So I think that probably makes it a little bit different. How much do you want to sell out to try and win this week? I think that's kind of what you need to decide there, and how much of an impact is what Keon Ellis can give you defensively going to really make. Like, are you going to win both defensive categories and then like turnovers and percentages to try and just survive and advance to the next week? Yeah, sure, he can probably help with that, but he's not really going to give you any points. So it's just, it has to be a pretty good fit with what categories you're trying to win, assuming, well, it is a category league, this one, but as more of a general thing, you just have to value that. All right. Would you look to stream a Pelicans player like Jose Alvarado or Naji Marshall in deeper leagues? I know we had Naji Marshall on your list yesterday when we were talking about streaming options for this week because they have a 4-game.
Yep.
And they didn't play last night, so they still have 4 more games this week, which is huge. Are you interested in either of those guys? Obviously, Alvarado would be pretty strictly steals and assists, and Naji Marshall, not great at any individual category, but 4 games of pretty decent value. Can make a little bit of an impact. Interested in either of those guys?
Yeah, look, I think in deep leagues, sorry, I'm just looking at box scores. Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction here is probably not Alvarado, unless you just need steals. For Marshall, yeah, look, I think we talked about him a little bit yesterday, so he's not a high volume guy by any means, but if you look at his last few games, 11-5, 2 assists, a steal, 8-2 assist to steal, 7-5, 2 assists and a steal. He's hitting threes in all of those games. He will have the occasional offensive sort of outburst where he goes for 15 points or something like that, but other than that, he can generally chip in on both ends of the floor. He's pretty efficient. So Marshall, with 4 games, yeah, I'd absolutely look at him in deeper leagues.
Yep, I think I would agree with that. Alvarado would be very dependent on steals. I was looking, I thought he hasn't been as consistent with the assists I thought he had been, or I guess was at other points of the season / last season. He had 4 in their last game, but 0 in each of the 2 games before that. So unless you're looking for steals, actually he has hit a 3 in like 8 straight games. So if you're cool with a steal and a 3, Jose Alvarado is your guy. If you need anything else, Naji Marshall's still a pretty decent option. Yeah,
and Marshall's top 130 over the past 2 weeks in 20 minutes a night. So that even makes him someone to consider in standard leagues. As I said, he's not going to help you in any specific category, but one of those guys that can just keep your scoreboard sort of ticking over in multiple categories. So, yeah.
Are we thinking that Justin Champagnie can put up some useful stats for the rest of the week with all the injuries in DC? Yeah, their injury report for today is ridiculously long. I'm going to try and quickly pull it up so I can tell you exactly.
Yeah, I've got it here. So Tyus is out, Avdi is out, Bagley's out, Shamit's out, Omarui's out, Kuzma is questionable. So I guess of their starting 5, they've got Corey Kispert, but he's not even really a starter, but he is at the moment. So he'll be playing. Kuzma, obviously, if he plays, will play big minutes. Jordan Poole has been pretty good. He's had a couple of not great games, but he's been better over the last month. Then, it's really take your guess. Rashawn Holmes, I don't think is the guy. So I don't think they're going to sort of hand him 35 minutes or anything like that. So they're probably going to go small, which will mean Justin Champagnie. It'll mean Patrick Baldwin, Johnny Davis. It's the time of year where, we're looking at these players that have had no relevance throughout the season. And Champagnie, I feel like he played big minutes in their last game.
He did. Last 2, he's played pretty well. He had 36 minutes in the last game, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 threes. Game before that, he had 11 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, a steal, 3 blocks, 3 threes in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're going to get blown out as they have for the last 3 games. But if he's on the floor, everybody else is hurt. I mean, I'm streaming him in a league. Now, granted, it's a dynasty league where I'm getting absolutely just torched by injuries, and I'm having to stream in guys off the waiver wire that aren't rostered with like 300 plus players rostered. But I'm streaming him, and I'm relying on him, and I really need him to have a good game. So I will be rooting for him to be able to put up quote unquote useful stats for the rest of the week. I'm actually going to need a lot more out of him than I was hoping to have to ask out of him in the dynasty league. But it is what it is. All right, I'm in the semifinals. I have Donovan Mitchell, OG, and Evan Mobley. I'm so sorry. With one IL spot, who should I put in the IL? Who should I hold? And who should I drop? Or is this the end of the line for me? Oh, goodness. I sure hope it's not the end of the line. This isn't the most optimistic, though, the fact that all 3 of them. I don't know. Which one would you be dropping at this point?
I don't know. I doubt. Well, we know Donovan's not going to play this week. OG, I guess there's a chance, but it doesn't sound like he'll play. And I'm just looking for the latest update on Mobley.
The latest was over a week ago. That he's not in a boot anymore. That's the latest one I can find.
Okay,
which doesn't tell us much.
No. Yeah, look, it's a tough one because you might drop, say, Donovan Mitchell and, I don't know, OG, for example, get through this week, and then next week Donovan's back and the team you're against has picked him up. That's the concern at this time of year, is that you drop someone because you have to win, and then your opponent picks them up when they're healthy. Yeah, look, if I had to sort of, I guess, rank this in terms of who might play this week, definitely not Donovan Mitchell. He's been ruled out for a week or reevaluated in a week, so that's not even that he'll return in a week. We haven't really heard anything on Mobley, OG. It might actually be Mobley. Mobley might be the one that comes back this week because I think OG, as you said, like this is an ongoing thing. So it's. I don't feel like they're going to push him too hard to get him back out there. Where Mobley was just a sprained ankle. So once you're good, you come back. So it's probably Mobley is the one that I'm holding. Yeah, I think it's a tough decision, but it's probably Mobley.
Yeah, this is literally, I guess not really start bench cut, which is like the kind of, I guess, trendy thing that happens when people want to get clicks on Twitter. But yeah, OG probably is the drop just because, I mean, I guess if there's a normal head coach, you'd say OG's the drop, but who knows? Hibbs might say, oh, he's back. Cool. 40 more minutes. And maybe his elbow will be fine. And so that's definitely a tough one. I probably feel the best, like you said, about Mobley playing soon. But yeah, that's a hard thing to say because I also feel like this always happens is that you say, oh, like, I don't think this player is going to play for at least a week. And then we'll finish the show, and then there will be an update in about an hour saying, yeah, no, they're questionable for their next game. I'm like, okay, so now I look like an idiot when I have no actual information here. And I'm just trying to do some guesswork here. But the other thing with this is that Cleveland has 3 more games this week. New York only has 2. So, and then actually, next week might even be more important. Cleveland plays 4 games next week, and New York plays 4 as well. So maybe there's not too much of an advantage there. I don't know. I think OG's the drop. I think you can, depending on what categories you need, you could probably live with dropping OG and playing against him more than you can live with dropping Donovan Mitchell and playing against him. And that might be another factor to consider. I don't know. I feel like handing the opposing team in the championship Donovan Mitchell probably isn't the best thing, but
no.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Do we think Sam Hauser will be back tomorrow? And how high are we on Pritchard and Hauser with the Celtics resting their studs? I know we talked about this yesterday, Kingy. Boston plays again on Wednesday, and then they play Friday and Saturday. And what they did with their last back-to-back was they rested half the starters on one and half of them on the other, with Horford being lumped in with those starters. And actually, I think Jaylen Brown played both. So, right? Or did he actually sit?
He might have. I've lost track what they're doing.
So, yeah, actually, I think that they did a total 3-3 flip. Let me just double-check that as I'm saying that, though. Yeah, total 3-3 flip. So Peyton Pritchard will see big minutes in both of those games on Friday and Saturday. If everybody plays Wednesday, not as excited about that, but Friday and Saturday, definitely excited. Hauser, I haven't actually seen any sort of injury update on him. I don't know if you have.
No, I mean, it's an ankle sprain. I'm much higher on Pritchard than Hauser, just given the injury and the fact that I know they have 3 games in 4 days, but even if Hauser comes back, I don't see him playing in both games of that back-to-back. They're not going to push that ankle. I know he's not one of their key pieces, but he is pretty important to their second unit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I doubt he comes back. I think maybe he misses the rest of this week. But Pritchard, I think he's definitely someone that probably should be rostered rest of the week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty excited about what he's going to do, especially this weekend. Do you think Keon Ellis is a 12-team guy if Kevin Huerter misses games? I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, or maybe talked about it enough earlier, but I think that our agreement was if you need defensive stats, then yes. And if you don't, then no, because that's pretty much all he's going to give you.
Yeah, look, I think if we looked at this as purely as a rank and top 120 is standard league, maybe, but that's probably because those low volume stats like steals and blocks tend to inflate a player's value. So, yeah, he's more of a specialist. If you need steals, sure. If you're looking for other production, probably not. I mean, you could certainly take a flyer on him if we know that Huerter is going to miss time, and maybe he just gets hot and gets you 15 or 16 points as well. So worth a flyer, but we'd need to see, what's going on with Huerter.
Yeah. Do you think Kobe White will play on Thursday? Has he missed their last, was it 3 games that he's missed or just 2?
Yeah, I think he's questionable.
Okay, he's missed their last 3, but yeah, he's questionable. Well, at least on Basketball Monster, he's questionable. So
yeah, and is that their next game Thursday?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I hope he does because I've got him in a couple of my leagues that I'm still active in, and he's sitting in my IR spot, so it's not too bad. But I'd love to have him back on the floor. Do we think he plays? I don't know. I think there's a chance he plays. I feel like he would really want to be back on the court, just given how well he's played this season and the fact that this opportunity is there for him. I think there's a chance he plays.
Yeah, and I was looking back, and it looks like the update for him being questionable Thursday is the fact that Billy Donovan said he'll miss at least the next 2 games before these past 2 games. So maybe that means he's back, maybe it doesn't. But I don't know. I guess, yeah, we'll have to probably wait until Wednesday night's injury report to really know.
Yeah.
More of a general question here. What is your favorite fantasy surprises this season? What do you think, Kingy?
Look, I mean, Jalen Johnson comes to mind immediately. Just as someone who's, I mean, I had him as a draftable guy. I think I had him in my top 90 or 80 or something like that. But he's outplayed those expectations. Maybe not. Well, sort of a surprise, but sort of not. Wemby, just how quickly he's been able to turn into who we thought he might be. We thought it might be a year or 2, but it wasn't. It was a few months for him to get there. And I actually watched anyone with Amazon. There's a Giannis documentary on there, just about his life and his career and that sort of thing. And I was watching that, and they were just listening to the coaches and the people talking about when they saw him, he was doing things that we've never seen in terms of bringing the ball up the court, and how fluid he was. And it just reminded me exactly of Wemby, but add a few more inches and a far better perimeter shooter. And it just sent me straight to Wemby and how good he might be if, as soon as his team is even moderate, sort of sitting in that 6th to 8th seed, how many MVPs is he going to win? How many Defensive Players of the Year is he going to win? So that's a little bit off topic, but yes, I think Wemby, Luka for me has been really good this year. Finally, he's sort of put it all together. The free throws, what's he at for the year? Basically 79% for the year, which still isn't elite by any means, but it's basically a wash now. He's close to. He's certainly not a punt free throw guy. I don't know, Jordan Poole, how bad he's been. Holmgren has been really good.
They said your favorite fantasy surprise, not the you love the
Jordan Poole. Yeah, it's not a favorite. Well, it is a favorite because I didn't draft him. So
okay, that's fair. It's my least favorite.
I've picked him up in a league in the last couple of weeks, but that's just because he's finally doing what we thought he might do. Yeah, I don't know. Probably my favorite is Jalen Johnson or Wemby, I would say.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson definitely would be one of mine. Kobe White's been fun. The other guy is Vince Williams Jr. I know we didn't get to see him, I guess, pretty limited, and now he's missed the last few games as well. But just how he was able to kind of break out with how many injuries they were dealing with on the side. That was really fun. I don't know. He's a guy that I really like for their team moving forward. So kind of exciting there. But yeah, a lot of fun surprises as the fantasy season always brings. Gobert has the questionable tag, but seemed like he was close to playing yesterday. Would you consider him? I guess. Do you think Gobert plays tonight, or do you think it's pretty close to 50-50?
It's probably close to 50-50, but I do feel like because they were on a back-to-back, they're sort of like, well, he's closer to doubtful for one and maybe closer to probable for the other. So they're playing Denver tonight, so it's a key matchup. This might depend on other players a little bit. So I think if Edwards plays, if Naz Reid plays, they probably go, okay, we want to try and win this. Let's see if we can get Gobert out there. But if Edwards is out, if Reid is out, they might go, you know what, let Denver have it, and we'll just give Gobert another night off. So, yeah, it's probably, and I'm assuming they don't have one of the early games. No, it's the late game. So, yeah, you're not going to probably know before games tip in, 2.5 hours. So, I don't know. I think there is a chance. I think given that he was questionable yesterday and he's still questionable, I think there is a chance he plays today.
Yeah, and I would think that if they were doing something where they're going to sit him on one leg of a back-to-back, they'd rather sit him against Utah than against Denver, since that's probably going to be a lot more important for the standings. But I'd say it's still probably close to 50-50. Keon, Karis LeVert mess around and get a triple-double while Donovan Mitchell heals up. The assists have really been there. I don't know if you've seen that. He's had at least 7 assists in their last 7 games. I think he had 11 in their last one. I think it was 23, 8, and 11 last night. So could he? Yeah, he came really freaking close just in their last game. Will he? I'm not endorsing betting money on a Karis LeVert triple-double. It could happen, but I'm not going to say, yes, it will.
No, I think there's a chance. I mean, as you said, he was close last night. I certainly hope he does, because I've picked him up in one of my leagues that I'm in the semi-finals. So was very happy last night. I wasn't happy when I first checked the box score and he was 3 of 6 from the free throw line, but he ended up going 8 of 11, I think. So I don't know what was going on there at the start of the game, but he might have had a stunt double shooting his free throws or something. But yeah, look, assists have been great. He's not really sort of giving you a lot of threes, but he doesn't do that. But we know he can score, because I still remember that game where he had, I don't know if he had 50, but there was a game
gosh, yeah, something like that.
Playing for it was a random game where he went off. And he just couldn't miss. So we do know that he can take on more of that scoring load. So I hope he does. He definitely has to be rostered this week.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to quickly. Okay, it looks like his career high is 51 in 2020. Yeah. He had 51. He's had a couple of 40-point games, but
yeah, was that against Boston?
It was against Boston.
Yeah.
It was an overtime game. Yeah, and he hit 5 threes, 12 18 from the free throw line. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Has a team with 12 wins ever been as big of a favorite as the Pistons should be this week when they go on the road to face the Wizards? And could that game make the very bad Pistons excellent streamers? I think the thing with Detroit is that it's hard to stream guys out of there because the main guys are still the main guys. Like, it's not like, okay, like, honestly, for an example with Washington, where, I mean, they were bad even with their main guys, but like tonight, I think it's, or whenever their next game is it tonight? They play tonight? Yeah, they play Houston tonight. And they have, like, we just went through the injury report. Almost everybody out, and Kuzma's questionable. So that's going to open up a lot of streaming options. But, like, Cade missed their last game. Fontecchio missed their last game. So it was Jaden Ivey doing a lot. But nobody really did anything else. Like, Evan Fournier's had a good game recently. He didn't play well last night. James Wiseman was okay off the bench. Like, I think it gives a boost to guys like Cade, Ivey, Duran, Fontecchio if he's playing, Asar if he's playing. But streaming options, like, I don't know. I'm not really excited about it based on what we've seen recently. Yeah,
they're a tough team because I didn't think that they were in that same bucket as your Portland and Memphis, who were sort of openly tanking just because they're so bad anyway. But they have had some guys sitting lately. Cade is probable, I think, for their next game. Sar Thompson has missed a few games. It's Asar that's had asthma. Got asthma.
Yep.
So he's missed a few games. Interesting that asthma is causing him to miss multiple games. Like, this is I
was kind of weird.
know. It's a little bit. I don't know if I'm concerned, just given that they're not. They're going to be very cautious with this, but asthma isn't something typically that goes away. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just an interesting situation to monitor. Isaiah Stewart's trash and he's out anyway. So look, I mean, there's certainly some streaming. Jaden Ivey, if he's available, Fontecchio, as you said, Wiseman. If Grimes plays, he hasn't played a lot since coming over. So if he's questionable, it looks like. So if he plays, he could have some value. But it is turning into a little bit of a situation like Memphis and Portland, where you're actually not going to know who you can stream until probably an hour before tip-off.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Will Chris Middleton miss one of the Bucks' upcoming back-to-backs? Yes. He will miss at least one of them. And if any more back-to-backs have the rest of the season, he will sit at least one game.
Yep.
And he will be on a pretty strict minutes restriction for the other and every other game that he plays in. That's just what they're going to do. And then when the playoffs start, they'll be ready to up his minutes load. But yeah, there's no reason for them to play him big minutes right now.
Yep, agreed.
Malik Monk, Walker Kessler, Alex Caruso, and Onyeka Okongwu were all dropped in my league coming off waivers tomorrow. How would you prioritize these guys, noting the games played? So Monk and Kessler have 3, Caruso and Okongwu have 2. How would you prioritize them? I know it obviously would depend on a little bit of the scoring format here, and then also if it is a category league, what categories you need help with. But how would you prioritize?
I'm just having a look at, because Okongwu played last night. Yeah,
he did. It was 19 minutes.
Okay.
I think he scored in double figures. Didn't really do a ton.
Okay, 11-4. Yeah. Okay. I think I'd have Monk first. Caruso, I don't know. I'm not really a Caruso guy just because he seems to get injured a lot and he seems to go to the locker room a lot. I know he's good when he's on the court. Is he questionable or anything? Where are we? Oh, no, he's not. There's nothing on the injury report. I don't know. Monk definitely first. Kongwu is probably last. I don't know. Probably Monk, Caruso, Kessler, or Kongwu. As much as I like Kongwu.
I was gonna say Kongwu last, Monk first. I think if John Collins stays out because of this head injury,
that's true. Yeah,
you get 3 games of Kessler as a starter. I'd rather do that than Caruso. But if Kessler's coming off the bench and John Collins is back, then Caruso over Kessler. I think that's kind of the factor you have to wait for here. Though 3 games of Kessler may be more valuable off the bench than 2 games of Caruso. I guess this is where it also comes down to what categories you need help with, because Kessler's going to give you more blocks and rebounds. Caruso's going to give you more steals, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. We will try and knock out this last one here. Pretty lengthy question here to kind of dive through some of these players. Have Max Strus, Denny, Cade Cunningham, Kobe White, John Collins, Kevin Huerter on injury tags. Which 1 or 2 would you drop? We'll start with that. Between these guys, which ones would you drop? I want to say Huerter and Strus. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's my initial reaction here is Huerter and Strus are the 2 that I would consider dropping. And then I guess
definitely not Cade and Kobe.
No. And then who are we looking at adding?
I guess we can kind of go through. We'll say the name and we'll just say whether or not we'd consider adding them. So Keon Ellis, yes or no?
For steals, yes.
Yeah. So defensive production, yes. Anything else? Not really interested. Naji Marshall, we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of not going to help you in any specific category, but well-rounded enough to provide you some value. TJ McConnell, I'm assuming, not TJ Warren. McConnell, if you need assists and steals. Agreed?
Yeah, look, if it's McConnell, I think I said this yesterday. I think he's even someone that should be rostered, and he had a good game again yesterday. I know his minutes aren't great, but he's getting assists, steals, and he's scoring, which is we don't see him score very often. So, I think McConnell definitely.
Yeah. Pritchard, yes, especially this weekend. Kongwu, maybe not. I think also in comparison to these other options you have to pick up, no to a Kongwu, though I might pick up a Kongwu if these other guys weren't an option. I'd pick up a Kongwu over Huerter and Strus.
Yeah.
Malik Beasley, if you really need 3s and you're missing out on them because you are dropping Strus and Huerter, then fine. McBride, assuming OG stays out, assuming he continues to start, then maybe. I don't know. What do you think about McBride?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think if OG is out, you could stream him in for sure. And we don't know, but I'm pretty certain OG doesn't come back in the next game. So I think you at least get another game of McBride here.
Yep. Jontay Porter, I think I would over those other guys.
Yep.
Jordan Nwora.
Yep.
John Conchar.
Probably. I don't know. Is he? I don't know, but again, I basically ignored Memphis for the last month just because I don't want any part of them. I know Conchar's an interesting one. He does have a nice fantasy game because he can get you out of position stats.
It's actually been really good the last few.
Yeah. So. Yeah, typically doesn't score a lot, but can get you some assists, some rebounds. He's a little bit Josh Harty in that he'll get you those rebounds, some defensive stuff. He'll give you a 3 every now and then. So he's played 8 of the last 9, which is pretty good for a Memphis guy. So, yeah, look, probably Conchar as well. I'd have him.
Rui Hachimura.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe we're just going to stream all these guys because
I think I would. If we just wanted to look at is there anyone I wouldn't have over Strus and Huerter? Maybe Cornette. Maybe Cornette. Maybe Hauser because of the injury thing. Maybe a Kongwu. Probably even a Kongwu because at least he's playing. So, yeah, I'd probably have most of these guys over Herder and Struce.
Okay, so then if you were to pick out, I know we've kind of gone through everybody real quick, but there's one or two that you would prioritize. Who would you be looking at?
Look, it's hard because a few of these guys, we just don't know what their role. Like Jordan Nwora, if we guarantee that he's going to get 28 minutes a night, he's probably one of them because we've seen him do this in the past. He did it in Indiana last year, I believe, where he had a little run of like scoring 20, 25 a night. TJ, I really like. McBride, just because if he's going to play 47 minutes. So probably TJ, Pritchard, McBride, and maybe Concha or Nwora.
Yeah. I think the one I would add to that list is Pritchard, and maybe it's you stream one of these other guys on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then pick up Pritchard for Friday, Saturday. So that's probably what I'd be looking at here. But we'll go ahead and call it since it doesn't look like there's any more questions here. Key, thanks as always for joining me, and everyone that came to ask questions. Thank you guys so much for bringing them. Again, that if you want to keep on hearing us talk about fantasy basketball, we'll be over at Fantasy Basketball International on Mondays on the Balls Deep podcast, and then doing other stuff throughout the summer. But this will be the final Q&A, but you can still find us on Twitter at AdamKing91 and at NoahRubin22 if you do have any questions to try and get you to the end of your season and hopefully to a championship. But Kingy, once again, thank you for joining me, and we will, I don't know, I would say see you guys next time, but that's probably going to be like 6 or 7 months before we do this again. But
yeah, it depends depends if they want you to do a Q&A leading up to the season, which I think would make sense. We'll do that. Like, I think probably starting in August or September is, I don't know. I like talking about fantasy, and you like talking about fantasy. It's whether they want us to do a show or not.
We will do it. We will be here, and until then, we will be active on Twitter where you can find us. But we'll just go ahead and wrap up this episode. So thank you, guys.